So this slide is mostly a backdrop. It doesn't have anything which is, super out of the world. But we want to talk about when it comes to challenges, for when do the large scale or even kind of small scale labeling, annotation, or data operations project fail. It's mostly for three main reasons. One is you're either not able to do it as quickly with the budgets that you have, or you're not able to scale it as quickly in the time you have, or you're not able to efficiently meet the outcomes that you need. And the outcomes can be of course, like quality is number one, but they can also be regulatory, compliance, safety, depending on which particular domain that your area or that your work is in. So some of the ways in which we have seen reducing the project cost, as in just to share an example, we had a particular client reach out to us, who wanted to annotate large scale videos, like thousands of videos and millions of hours of data, and we used a natural language sort of a semantic a tool, which basically just by giving it a prompt, it was able to find the particular situations of interest within that video timeline. And our expectations with if you compare it to like humans completely doing it yourself versus this sort of a scrubbing tool that allowed us to find the exact interactions of interest, which of course went through further human sifting and quality control later on, but it really helped us to kind of reduce or optimize the project cost based on these new technologies. There was an initial R&D cost that we had to put in for finding the right balance of that, how we are using our natural language to kind of do that searching and so on. But these are little examples where I think project cost, they look initially inflated, but you need to be you need to use your like guiding principles and metrics to find the right balance of getting those costs down. I know, Yasmin, like we talked while we are preparing for this session, there are certain areas in which Dataloop also helps to with your clients and how you balance across these dimensions. Like, do you want to share any of those thoughts on how you do that with your teams?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about enterprise teams, you have a variety of people working on different kinds of use cases. So how do you unify, disparate or different kinds of teams with different focuses, different needs, and still have the scalability and standardization to get that work done? And that's where the ML tech stack and the tools and resources provided really play a big role. And having these in place is what lets you meet the cost or the compliance or scalability for those particular use cases. So as a platform, like we've evolved to continue to address each new wave of AI, and we will continue to meet the new waves as it evolves. In order to address both these like overall principles and the new techniques that are being incorporated.
Well said. Because actually, when it comes to compliance and safety, for the products which are safety critical, right? For example, whether they are healthcare, robotics, or let's say aerospace or autonomous vehicles, which is like a safety critical application. A lot of times we hear from our client base that the work that happened initially when we talked about annotations and training data sets, there are a lot of downstream implications when it comes to the safety case and how evidently you can prove the safety case based on the quality of that data curation and annotations. So one, sort of a first principle for all of us right here would be that when it comes to that safety and data governance, let's make sure you all understand how the quality of the annotations and your workflow kind of plays a role at the end of the day when it comes to creating a safety case, which is going to need an approval before you can launch a particular product. Otherwise, it can have cascading impact on your cost and of course your time to launch and market and so on. So that's about that. Scalability, as you all know, it's a it's a number 3 on the slide here, but it's probably one of the number 1 things that you need to watch for. Your project costs, you'll be surprised how quickly they can escalate based on the scale of the work you're doing. So I think it's very important, again, as Yasmin and I were saying at the beginning, that you kind of understand the new AI and ML tools that you can deploy in your pipeline to see, from pilot to post-pilot to production to a full scale. How can you, kind of a stepwise have a, lesser than a linear relationship between your scale and cost? Otherwise, it's going to go out of hand.
Yeah, and one of the things that has changed in the last year or so is like we've seen a ton of Gen AI demos. The demos look impressive. They look like they can do some magical work. And then when you try and bring it into production or bring it into a real world use case, you're not reaping the reward of, the power that you're seeing. It's just like a tiny demo. So when it comes to scalability, it is there. It's like you said, it's like being able to do that agile trial and seeing for your actual use case at the scale, what do we see? And then if we bring it back up to production and bring it to a bigger team, are we still seeing the same level of savings or seeing the same level of impact as we would have seen in a small demo?
Yeah, I think that's like, it kind of makes me reflect that there are certain cases where, sorry, I want to go back. There are certain cases where the pilot workflow makes complete sense with a demo and like, hey, this is awesome, this tool is going to work. And then when it comes to getting it from like 10 to 100, speed, when you have humans involved, it does often get also more difficult, no matter how excellent the tool is, but you also need to design your sort of a human experience like workflow with those tools. So scalability technically, can be solved, but practical sort of application of that technology needs to be tested and tried out pretty well before you can, put it out on a bigger workflow. Otherwise, things look all good on paper and theory makes sense, but then you fail in your practicals. So that's another takeaway for all of us.
Yeah, great points.